Join Jim Walker and Digby Beecham on the Sports Daily each weekday morning from 5:30.
Timing is everything, and it's great to have our next guest in the studio as well, Neville Parnham, to get a flinch reaction to that and also an update on some of the stars in his yard. Neville, a very good morning to you, and thanks for coming in to the studio this morning.
Yeah, good morning, Tim. Good morning, Diggies. And for some very exciting news coming out of there. Yeah.
First question, I suppose, Neville, is have you got a horse who can be considered for a slot, or would you be looking at a slot yourself with some of your connections?
Yeah, well, obviously this is not something new from as far as industry people are aware of. You know, actually one of my owners, Mike Fagan, he'd been canvassing this since last November, and he had a meeting with Rawa just to try and see, because he thought it was a good idea, and you know, it's just been a long time in the making, but it's finally got there. But yeah, you know, the initial interest was with trainers, and that there was big support from trainers to put up that figure. Yeah. And I don't think the slots would be hard to sell.
Indian Pacific is a horse who we've seen run very well at Group 1 level on the East Coast. He's a placing in albeit in a handicap. This is weight for age, the quokka, but would he be a candidate from your stable, a 1200 metre weight for age event?
Oh, I'd like to think so. If I can get him back to his very best form, he certainly would be a worthy representative. Yeah.
Neville, did you think that we'd come this far in WA racing? I mean, slot racing was unheard of this time 4 or 5 years ago. Then the Everest came along. We know that. Did you think that we'd get it just across the road from your stables there?
I guess, but probably not initially. You know, but Rawa have done a fantastic job in the prize money we race for, the platinum bonuses we race for. You know, the building of the summer carnival with $1.5 million races. You know, I'm sure over the next 2 or 3 years, you know, some of those races, build-up races, will certainly get some cash injection, but you've got to start somewhere. And, what we race for here in WA, in our own little nest here, it's a very attractive prize money.
It certainly is, and a horse who has delivered you and the ownership some very good prize money along the way throughout his juvenile campaign is Stodome, who was back at the trials this week. How's he tracking for his 3-year-old campaign?
Yeah, we left him a colt, and he was a little bit narrow as a 2-year-old, but he had the size, but he didn't have the frame, I felt. So we left him as a colt, and he's a nice, quiet colt. He's really thickened up in the past 6 months, and I'm really happy with the way he's spelled, really happy with the way he's returned, and obviously on his trial form that he'd been tracking up really, really well in his workouts, and he's nowhere near ready to go, but his trial on Monday was looked very promising against the open class older horses.
Will he trial again, and what does his campaign look like?
Look, we'll save him for Ascot, I would say. I guess the most likely race would be the 1,000 metre race. Not sure of its name. I think it may be the Placid Arc Preview or something. I'm not sure, but that's a likely kick-off point for him. But we'll just see where he's at, and will he have another trial? Maybe, yeah. But I just he was that well in himself. I just wanted to sort of settle him down a little bit, and it's not that far away, Ascot, so we'll be looking forward to it.
What's the trick to getting size winners and clearly very good 2-year-old winners to come back and replicate that in the spring?
Well, you know, there's a vast difference of horses. You know, 2-year-olds can be not as big and compact and real speedy horses, and then you get the ones that are a bit more rangier. They're the ones most likely to sort of improve, and as the distances get out. But there's certainly a good crop of 2-year-olds from last season to 3-year-olds this year. You know, there's a few pop their heads up to be counted over the winter period, and Danny Morton was probably one of them that has been able to produce quite a few that they certainly show a lot of promise. Yeah.
What is your 3-year-old battery look like? Because we know that there's been money thrown at some of these 3-year-old races, in particular Placid Arc, which is now worth $500,000.
Oh, look, I've got 2 or 3 there that I sort of have a lot of confidence in, and They've still got to stand up and be counted. Bustler's one of them. I think he's a pretty promising type of horse. He works like a good horse. He's only had the one midweek win, but we put him straight out and he's back tracking up pretty well. He's probably likely to go to the trials Monday week. And he'll be on a journey hopefully towards a Guineas. He's by Playing God out of Cosmic Domination, who had a 2-year-old Travis trial well on Monday. So look, I think he's a promising one. A filly I've got a lot of time for. She's a Playing God too as well. She's a horse called Fashing Stakes. We probably lost her a little bit sort of between trials and races, but and then she got left in front, which is not her go in the first up run, and she was disappointed, but her next start she was ridden off the pace and she worked to the line really well. So but the improvement I've seen in her, or the maturity I've seen in her in the last 3 months is massive. So, and she's going really well. She'll trial Monday week.
Okay, so a little idea on the 3-year-olds. So we touched on Indian Pacific there earlier on. We know how exciting he can be when he is at his best. A few of the older heads around the stable, Platoon, how's he going as he looks to get to the Perth Cup again? Is that right?
Look, he probably will, yeah. You know, he ran very well in it last year, and the initial plan was to sort of head to the Railway Kingston Town sort of races, but they probably were a little bit sharp for him. He's starting to sort of get a little bit of age on him. But he got out and he performed well in the Kingston Town and the Cox Stakes and then the Perth Cup. He went very well in them. So that's probably the most likely way we'll head with him. It was a bit disappointing over the winter, but you know, he just didn't seem to handle the wet tracks and probably even the Belmont circuit. You would think it would suit him, but he does save his best for Ascot.
We spoke to Brad on Tuesday morning and he was a little bit non-committal over Indian Pacific's trial, and you've said this morning if you can get him back to his best. What did you make of his hit out there on Monday?
Overall, probably a bit plain. You know, I thought he was a bit disappointing for what he is capable of, but I guess we're working on this whole preparation as to getting him to settle again. He never used to be a hard-going horse in a race. He'd certainly want to get out and run a bit, but that trip over to Victoria, since he went there, he come back and he's been a horse that's wanted to go way out too hard in his races, and he disappointed. So we've been working on getting him to settle, and you know, maybe we've just gone a little bit overboard with it, but yeah, we've still got a fair way to go. So I'm not concerned. If you sort of look at him and you'd think he's a bigger, stronger horse, much more mature. But he has had a knee problem from his early days as a horse. But my vet Pete Harding, who did the operation on him in early days, he trotted him up yesterday morning and he said, I can't believe how sound this horse is. So, you know, there's no soundness issues with the horse. He's and no inflammation in his knee, so without any medication or treatment. So I'm pretty confident he'll take a fair bit of benefit out of that. But you know, I've still got plenty of time to sort of crank him up and get him ready for this carnival here. The initial thoughts were we were going to pop him on a plane and take him to the Melbourne Cup week up the straight. He seemed to go well there in the Newmarket. Yeah. So it still is a plan, but he would have to improve on that performance on Monday for me to consider putting him on a plane.
What triggers that, I suppose, alternative route that he's taking in his racing now, as opposed to being a horse who once was quite an easy ride, as opposed to one who now gets along and really wants to roll?
Yeah, well, we probably didn't see that in him on Monday, so you know, I think that he does need to relax to be measuring up to the better class horses. There's no question of that, and which he wasn't doing, and hasn't done, you know, in the last probably 8 months. But you know, if he's going to sort of step up to the plate, he needs to sort of relax. I've had a terrible year with him because I had planned after the summer carnival last year to take him to, it was a race in January, which was worth about 300 up the straight, and that was my plan. And then with all this COVID, you know, last minute there was no plane after sort of them suggesting that there would be a plane. So I put him in the paddock for a few weeks, and then I was going to take him for the Oakley Plate. again, no plane. So he had a terrible sort of mixed up preparation. He was out for 2 or 3 weeks and back in and trying to get him up and down. And then obviously when he did race, he went to Northam and the Roma Cup and he was playing in those 2 races. So the decision was made, no, that's it. We're just going to give him a nice break. So he had about maybe 8 weeks in the paddock. And now he's come back. He looks better, bigger, stronger. But he's still got to step up to the plate and get to where he was. Yeah.
Neville Parnham is with us in the studio this morning, working through some of his key players going towards the Pinnacles at Ascot, and even and I getting his thoughts on the Quokka, the new $4 million race that will take place in April next year. Neville, we've spoken about the Group 1s, a couple of the Group 1s there, and a couple of horses that have performed well at Group 1 level. The mare's side of it is Flying Missile and also Express Time a good hand to play going towards the mare's races, if that is indeed the way you're thinking of going?
Yeah, for sure. That's their plan. Flying Missile's just come back this week. She'll be she had about 6 weeks off the last start win, so she'll head towards the Jungle Mist and Jungle Dawn. Yep, 1400. I think she's better at 1400 personally, but she was obviously a very speedy 2-year-old, but over that last summer carnival when we took her out to the Burgess Queen, I think it was, she ran really well in that race, and maybe the race after the Placid Arc she won, she ran very well in that. So I think she's very capable up to the 1400 metres, and those 2 races, I doubt I'd take her out to 16. So a horse like Express Time, that will be her primary target to sort of be I think it's the Jungle Mist, the 1200. She probably won't get much further than that, if any. So it'd be nice to sort of try and get a little bit of black type into her pedigree. She's won, I don't know, 10, 11 races from about 24 starts or 5 starts. So she's a winning machine, but she needs to sort of, if possible, get a bit of black type in it. And, maybe a race like the Summer Scorcher, on Cup Day, that might even be a nice race to sort of try and poke her in. So those couple of horses, and we'll see where we go with the mile and the 1800. Maybe a 1800 metre race. I know she needs to improve a lot, but to run a place in a race like the Latrice with the Pinnacles and Yora, she loves that 1800 at Ascot. It might be aiming a bit high for her, but that'll be something I'll have in the back of my mind to try and get a little bit of black type in that, even if it is a placing.
Wasn't Express Time a revelation last campaign? She just the bar kept getting raised and she kept jumping over it, not just a little bit, she was flying over it.
Yeah, she certainly was. She was a horse, as a younger horse, had a bit of knee trouble, so she was obviously lightly raced, and got her up a couple of times, and she had maybe 1 or 2 runs, and just immaturity. Just gave her a couple of good spells, and she's, like you said, last campaign, and the way she's working at the moment, you would certainly indicate that she's going to come back and perform again. So we're looking forward to the Ascot meetings for her, because she seems to get around that track pretty well, and as you said, every time you raise the bar, she delivered. So hopefully she can keep delivering from that raising of the bar.
Now, Neville, you were very active again at the yearling sales earlier this year. What are we expecting from your stable in regards to 2-year-olds, and when do you envisage you'll be able to roll them out?
I'm not in any hurry with the 2-year-olds, and I'm not usually are, but I've got plenty of 3-year-olds and older horses to sort of concentrate on. So, I've got probably about 8 of them sort of doing a little bit. How far I get with them will depend on the individual. The ones I've got up and going at the moment is a Magnus filly. It's a half to the Pierce Boys Black Fantasy, is it? Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, and a Dream Along.
Okay.
But she's by a completely different sire, Magnus, so she seems to be coming along quite nicely in the early part of it. But yeah, she'll tell me where she is, in the next couple of weeks, whether we go to a trial or whether she goes back out again. And got a Capitalist filly, which she's probably more of a 2-year-old type. She's not overly big, but she's a bit racy. So I would say she's most likely the one that will be one of the first 2-year-olds that I trial. And the other one that I've got fairly forward is a War Chant colt out of Rockaby's Witch, I bought him at the winter sale. He's a beautiful horse, and he's tracking up really well, but he is quite a lot bigger than most 2-year-olds would be at the moment, so he will be a day-to-day proposition as each workout, a bit of fast work, and if he's not ready for it, he'll go out. So there's a few of those, and there's a few sort of following them ones. I've got a Morris colt gelding. We've got another Plain God filly out of a sprinting family, which looks like a sprinter. So she'll be following in very shortly and stepping up. So we'll just see. Yeah, I'm not in any hurry. I'm pre-Christmas with 2-year-olds. That's good money to be won, but I probably haven't bought that kind of horse. I sort of try and buy horses that'll get out to 14 and a mile. They seem to be the races I like to target with 3-year-olds and that. So, but yeah, I'm sure there's a few sprinters amongst them. There's a Capitalist colt, but he's in work as well, and a couple of more Playing Gods. So we'll see where it takes us.
Is there still always an air of expectation when you get to the initial plate and then the 2-year-old races that ensue, albeit you do play the long-term game, as you do say there?
Yeah, that's the way I like to plan it. Yep. So, but yeah, 2-year-old racing, a lot of money involved, but yeah, it's still there sort of after the new year and into their 3-year-old and 4-year-old year now. So, as I said, Rara have done a fantastic job promoting that scheme and supporting the breeding industry. So, it pays to buy local, and I think I only bought one horse in the East Coast this year, which is very unusual for me, but. There's still some that have got Eastern States pedigrees, the Capitalists, but looking forward to sort of where we go in the next year.
You talk about buying local. You must take a great deal of satisfaction that you've, you have shaped the local breeding industry, obviously with Playing God and also Rommel.
Yeah, they were both kept as colts, and I believed in Playing God. I thought he would, if he could get the right farm to take him, which Gray and Jan Williamson obviously initially invested into him, and they took him on, and they give him a good foundation. Had quite a number of mares in his first year, and as like any stallion, they taper off by year 3. But we bred a few as well, and we supported the stallion, and he's probably exceeded the expectations that I had of him. I thought he'd make a handy sire, but he's not just a handy sire, he's a very good sire. And I made that sort of quote after Alaskan God won the Derby. He had a 2-year-old winner the week before, swear to God, and then over 1,000 metres, and a week later he had a 2,400 metre Derby winner. So he's the complete package really.
And Rommel?
And Rommel, well, I think he's done a fantastic job. I actually noted the other day his percentage winners to run. It was something that had surprised me. It was up like I think 68% or so, or it was quite high. And he could get a nice horse, obviously Snowdome, and he's Snowdome is capable of putting Rommel's name up in lights, and I got a couple of nice yearlings by him, or 2-year-olds I should say now. But I think the best is yet to come from him. He's now shown breeders that he can produce a stakes winner, so he will be fairly well supported this year. And Santo, who owns a good part of him, he's into the breeding stock now, and he's purchased a few good mares. He's got hold of Shantalk just recently, so she'll be a good mare to go to Rommel, and he's bought a few others. So he's got a couple of nice a yearling and a foal by Rommel out of Lafayden, which she's done a good job with SJ's horses in Saturday, Santorio. She's just gone to Zoostar, so he thought he'd give her a good chance, but he's got plenty of nice mares he's supporting Rommel with again this year. So I think the best is yet to come, and very proud of what both stallions have been able to do. People tend to sort of go and look for overseas or over east stallions, but if they're kept as colts here, which not many are, you never know what the product could produce. So he was a dual Group 1 winner. He was multiple place Group 1 Playing God I'm talking about in the East Coast. He was a proper Group 1 horse, and it's showing out in his progeny.
That it certainly is. Neville, thank you very much for coming into the studio this morning. We thank you very much for giving us a bit of your time. We know it is a busy time of the year, working back to Ascot, and hopefully we can see some success this year, whether it's Santo's colours with Snowdome or Platoon. He deserves a big race win, and obviously Indian Pacific in those same colours. Hopefully they can be saluting throughout the Pinnacles upcoming.
Yeah, well, hopefully. And the other horse that we haven't spoken about is Neville. I think he's had a good spell this year.
Okay.
I think he's shaping up pretty well, so he'll have another tilt at the Perth Cup as well. But we're hoping we can have a good carnival. But there's obviously a well talked about filly in Amelia's Jewel, which there's big expectations from her to get on from a 2-year-old to a 3-year-old career, and whether she's whichever way she goes, she's going to be hard to beat. So, but yeah, probably 3-year-old racing is where her best chance is. There's not too many 3-year-olds win sprinting 3-year-old like Prince of Wales or the Roma Cups. It's very rare.
Yeah. Thanks for your time. All the best. We'll catch up with you again very soon.
Cheers.
Join Jim Walker and Digby Beecham on the Sports Daily each weekday morning from 5:30.